Hi, Jack. Hi, everybody. Like, we're waiting for John and Isaac. Alice is sick.
And Holly.
Oh.
Hi.
I was gonna say, and do you know Alice is sick?
Yes, Alice is sick. Hi, Isaac.
The 2 reams of paper sitting here was. That's all.
I believe we are ready to go, Madam Mayor.
Is John also?
I don't see John.
I think
Oh.
John's going to join us in closed session. We have a quorum here, so we can do that.
Okay.
Right, that's right. Okay, so I'd like to call to order the town council meeting for January 15th of 2025 and welcome everybody. I am on video. I need to disclose because I am very sick and I'm also required to disclose if there's someone over 18 in the room with me, and there is no one over 18 in the room with me. So at this moment, if we could call the roll, Lee?
Councilmember Fredericks is absent. Councilmember Nick Farr.
Sent.
Councilmember Ryan.
Here.
Vice Mayor Wellner is absent and Mayor Thier.
Is here, here. So right now we are going to go into closed session. So I will see if there's any public comment on closed session before we go in.
Seeing none.
Okay, then we are going to go to closed session right now. Okay, everybody. Okay, everybody. Are we ready?
I believe we are ready.
Okay, today is January 15th, 2025, and I'd like to call to order the Tiburon Town Council meeting. I am on video because I am sick and I'm required to disclose that under the Brown Act. I'm also required to disclose that there's no one in the room with me that is over 18 years old. We just came out of closed session and there is nothing to report. And I will ask our town clerk, sorry, to now take the roll, please.
Councilmember Fredericks is absent. Councilmember Nick Farr,
Present.
Councilmember Ryan,
Here.
Vice Mayor Wellner,
Here.
and Mayor Thier.
Here. At this time, we are moving to the consent calendar. I would like to ask if any members of the public have comments on the consent calendar.
Madam Mayor, if you don't mind, we should do oral communications first.
Okay, great. Oral communications.
And I'll just instruct the members of the public on Zoom how to make a comment. And if you're calling in on Zoom and would like to make a comment at any point during this meeting, please use the raise hand feature of Zoom, which will indicate to me you would like to make a comment. You can find the raise hand button on your webinar controls bar on the bottom of your Zoom window or smartphone screen. If you're calling in using a phone, you can dial *9 to raise your hand. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And do we have any members of the public that would like to make comments on items that are not on the agenda?
Plans on the agenda twice, so when's the right time for the public to make comments?
So the right time, are you referring to the Parks Master Plan?
Yeah.
Yes, so there will be an opportunity for during the consent calendar. There will be another opportunity on the actual item. And that is on discussion 1, implementation of the Parks Master Plan.
Okay, so either one's an option. Okay, cool.
Sure.
Thank-
Definitely. Thank you. Any more public comments?
Seeing none.
Okay, great. Then I will now move to the consent calendar and I'll start off by asking my colleagues if anyone would like to pull anything from consent, and then we will take public comment right after that. Would anyone like to pull an item from consent? Okay, I will pull consent item 4, Parks and Recreation Master Plan. And is there any public comment on the consent calendar items?
Yeah, it would be, they're going to approve the remainder of the consent calendar first, and then they'll go to item 4, and that'll be your chance. You're welcome.
We'll signal you.
Yeah.
Okay, so is there a motion?
I move that we pass consent items 1 through 3 and 5.
Okay,
Second.
great. I think it's just a voice vote, or is it? No, it has to be because I'm here.
I'll do
So
it.
you could do the roll, Lee.
Councilmember Fredericks is absent. Councilmember Nick Farr,
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wellner,
Yes.
and Mayor Thier.
Yes.
Thank
Okay. Now moving to consent item 4, Parks and Recreation Master Plan. I believe we have a public comment. Okay, so if you could say your name and that would be great. And then Give us your comments, please.
Hi, Happy New Year. My name is Jenna. I'm a parent who lives in Tiburon, and I'm a member of the grassroots group Parents for Parks and Rec. Thank you as always for giving members of the public the chance to speak tonight. I am really excited to see that the town council is committed to implementing some of the ideas in the Parks and Rec master plan. And from what I've heard, is committed to doing it sooner than later, at least some of the items. So our group has a lot of hopes and dreams for our Parks and Rec system, which we've shared over the past year. We've identified 6 items that we feel are suitable for immediate action. 1, renovate the Cypress Hill playground and lawn. 2, make minor improvements to Bel Air Park, such as adding a picnic table. 3, conduct a feasibility study for an inclusive playground at Zielinski Park. 4, add seating and shaded picnic tables to Lineal Park. 5, convert the sanitation pond site to a grassy field, a paved court, or a volleyball court. We'd be fine with any of them. And we'd ask that you also include seating with whichever option you choose. And last off, create a map of the town's public recreational spaces and post it on the website, and ideally create a physical version of it as well that can be posted at the parks. So I'm happy to email you this list on behalf of our group, and we look forward to seeing some action taking place within the next 6 months. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jenna, and thank you for all of your work. Are there any other comments on this item?
Seeing none.
Okay, great. So the consent item for the Parks and Rec master plan was pulled as council had asked for specific changes on the plan. And I wanted to give our council members an opportunity to provide comment, or if any of the changes were not made, to discuss them at this time.
No, I think we're all satisfied.
Okay,
There was one that I wanted to make sure, I think we had talked about deleting references to storage facilities. I think there were a couple of them still in there, and I just wanted to make sure those got removed. I noticed a couple in the appendices as well. Should I like email a list? Is that the best way to call those out?
yeah, I think if you email a list, you could talk about some of them now as well.
I don't have it in front of me, but and David can jump in if I get this wrong. My understanding is references to adding any storage facilities were removed, but the only references that are left in the appendices are in the assessments that were made of each facility. And I believe a couple of them noted that there was just a lack of storage. That's all. It wasn't suggesting to build more. It was just noting that there was no storage. Is that correct? Yeah, that was my understanding. So.
Okay, maybe I got the wrong context in that one then. But I'll double check it and I'll follow up over email.
Okay.
Yeah, I also noticed some references as well, and we had asked for references to storage to be removed. So page 90 of the final appendix had references to storage with respect to the South Knoll restroom. In addition, under building inventory, there was another reference to storage, and then page 91, there was more references to storage that should be deleted. And then again, appendix 105. Again, there were more references to storage. And page 108. So I would like to see those done before we approve the plan, or I'm happy to make a motion approving the plan with these deleted. But I do want to see it come back to us because they were still left in.
Okay, so what, do you want to make a motion excluding them and then we can vote on it?
Sure. So I would make a motion that we approve the plan, but we exclude the specific references that I just stated, and I'm happy to send the list to our consultants to make sure that they are deleted.
A second.
I think we need a hand vote, Lee.
Councilmember Fredericks is absent. Councilmember Nick Farr,
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wilner,
Yes.
and Mayor Thayer.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I wanted to ask my colleagues, if we could move the item, sorry, for the implementation of the Parks Master Plan up. It's now last on the agenda, but I do think I saw some people walk in with children, very young children. So if it's okay with everyone, I'd like to move that item up. It's a discussion item. I don't know if I need consensus to do that, but does
I don't-
anyone have a problem with that?
See any objections?
There's no objections. We can proceed with discussion one.
Great, so we'll proceed with discussion one. Is there public comment on discussion one, implementation of the Parks Master Plan?
Can we also just clarify that this is the second and last item that has to do with the Parks Master Plan on today's agenda? So if anyone wanted to talk about the Parks Master Plan, this is the last opportunity to do that.
Right, thank you, Isaac. And I also want to give a little-
Today, the last opportunity to do that today in this meeting.
We'll be talking about
Yeah.
it for many
Yes.
months to come, but yeah.
Right, we will. And the reason this this is on is just give people an opportunity to talk, but also give the council an opportunity to identify some of the things that, you know, we could do immediately. The plan right now, sorry, is to put this on the agenda next month for action. But, you know, out of respect for the public, we want to make sure you have time to talk about these very important, you know, fast things that we can do. So with that, I'm going to ask again if there's public comment. Lee?
I'm seeing none.
Okay. So then it will go to the council.
I have some comments.
Great. Go.
So I'm excited to see this on here. It's something that you know, when we passed the master plan originally, I think one of the things that we talked about in our deliberations and certainly informally committed to is identifying the low-hanging fruit and moving forward on those things quickly. So we don't want those to, you know, things that are easily identified and executed should go as quickly as possible. I think if we're going to agendize next month for action, I think the question, this is kind of a request and also a question to staff. Do you think it would be relatively straightforward for you to identify from the proposals that have been made for the neighborhood parks, things that, improvements that could be quickly executed and provide that to council so that we could review them, talk about them, and decide whether or not to move forward on them quickly?
I think certainly we could identify, we could go through the list of both low-hanging fruit in the list that public speaker mentioned, and, you know, identify ones that staff can work on with no additional financial resources that are necessary, and maybe ones that would require
Minimal budget amendments.
minimal, and that, you know, we can grade them as this is one we can just work on because it doesn't really cost anything at this point. Here's one that may require some additional help, meaning design or visioning, and, you know, and sure, we'd be happy to do that.
Yeah,
for the
that
next
would be
meeting.
super helpful if we could get, because I think what, you know, we have some elements of the plan that will require deliberation and thought, and, you know, particularly when it with regards to Blackie's Pasture or the Lineal Park. But we also heard from, you know, residents who are just looking to clean up a park or put in a bench or those kinds of things. It would be great to have a list of those things and we can just review them, discuss them, and take action when appropriate.
I would just note as well, there was an article in the ARC yesterday about this, that your post commission is also working as a number of committees to relatively quickly make recommendations for some of these low-hanging fruit items specifically related to the mini parks.
Yeah, and I think, we'd love to see what they come up with, but I think some of these things don't require, deep analysis. We can just,
And we can do that analysis and maybe give you suggestions on which ones
yeah,
are just
get done.
refreshing what's there, replacing benches and
Exactly. The easy ones.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my desire. I would love that.
Yeah, I agree with that. And also I think that, we really want to give the public a forum where they can talk about all their ideas in one meeting. The post process seems to be a little confusing, and I'm getting a lot of questions, I know, about if there's public meetings, if there's not. And so far, I think there hasn't really been. So I think we may be moving a little bit faster, but we will take all the input we can get and, want to give the public a chance to talk. So,
I mean,
okay.
if Post wants to throw in recommendations for our next
Yeah.
meeting too, we can look at those too, but I don't think we want to wait.
Right. Okay, so
Jack, do you?
So I sort of agree, but I actually, and I agree there are things we will want to move quickly on. I do think we should just ask Post to come to us with recommendations. And we can sort of scrape off the top that are immediately actionable. Because I do think they're looking at sort of a prioritization of all of these things as well. And so Mayor Thier, the only question I have for you is with respect to the public input. Like, I think that there's still probably a lot of the public that is like with Bel Air Park specifically, that it might not feel like the public process has been full enough. And so you don't think it would be worthwhile to have the Post do a public meeting for those things that are maybe a little more controversial?
So a lot of the complaints are that the post process so far hasn't been open and transparent. So there hasn't been meetings. Now that might be a function of different people resigning or not, but I think that if post should give us input whenever they have it, but we also need to have a forum for people to come to the council and say what they want. So I agree with both. If I would like to see Post hold public meetings that are noticed so that people can attend and they know about it. So I was getting a lot of questions over the holidays. When is the meeting? Where's the calendar? What is the schedule? And those were questions that no one could answer. That's part of the reason this is on the agenda. But I also agree with you. It's great. If Post comes to us with recommendations, we're going to take those recommendations and incorporate them into what the council, thinks should happen. I would hate to see what Vice Mayor Wellner was talking about, the low-hanging fruit get caught up in a process that is really long, because that's something that our staff should be doing, can be doing anyway. So if there's improvements to the park.
Yeah,
So I
I would just say, I agree with Jack, actually. I think we're really kind of saying flip sides of the same thing. I think
we
if,
are.
if something's complicated, we should wait but I think there are things that aren't.
Yep, okay, I hear you.
Yeah,
And to your point, Holly, like, I totally hear what you're saying in terms of that disconnect, but I think that, Post just formed those subcommittees a little while ago, and maybe they're waiting for direction to us to say, hey, guys, you did all this subcommittee research. Go have a public meeting with the information that you gleaned from your research, right? And so they can have a public meeting, but I hear you, like, we can have some stuff come to us before that, but I would love to have them have public meetings on all of it. I really
Yeah.
think they should do that.
yeah. I mean, it's great. Whatever they can do is great. It's just also some people can't go to six. They've divided up into little specific areas, and some people can't go to 6 different meetings. So maybe they'll give us input. The more public input we could get, in my mind, the better off we are. And
Agreed.
whether it's Post or us, let's let the public just engage whoever they can. But tonight, I mean, if people have things that, we think can be done right away, or if there's priorities that you have in your mind, I would love to hear from the council and any of those things. And if you don't, that's okay too.
Yeah, I'd love to maybe add a couple of comments and context. So, it's great to hear, Mayor, that you're getting some feedback. I think positive or negative because people are engaged. I think it's been a topic I think a lot of people are asking about and wondering about. Their Post has subcommittees for a variety of projects. So they have a subcommittee on mini parks, they have a subcommittee on pickleball, they have a subcommittee on paddleboard and a SUP launch. They have a subcommittee on researching options for a pool, which also includes doing some sort of partnership with Strawberry Rec. And then there's also a subcommittee on Blackies and the Old Rail Trail and the RBSD ponds acquisition, or I guess what was formerly the RBSD ponds. And so I think I spent some time walking the park with Commissioner Moon over the break. And I think they've done a lot of research and a lot of background in terms of what people are looking for and what they're asking for. So I think I'd commend Post, I think, on doing a lot of that background work already. They have meetings that are noticed on the Tiburon website. I think maybe we could also ask our good friends at the ARC to do us a solid and maybe talk a little more about what Post is doing in their meetings so that people know what's going on. Because I think information is incredibly important around this about this. They can also the general residents can also watch the videos of the Post meetings and write emails that will be a part of the agenda. So there are a lot of different ways that anyone can contribute to a Post meeting, and we have some incredibly capable Post commissioners on that commission. I was once a Post commissioner. I know, Mayor, you were also a Post commissioner. It's a great way to give back, and there's a lot of work that kind of goes unnoticed in that role. But I think that they're very interested in helping and doing a lot of the background work that I think we'll need across these. And Commissioner Hornbrook and Commissioner Moon and Commissioner Burr, I've spoken with recently about whether or not we would like them to work on other projects or researching other things like playgrounds, accessible playgrounds, et cetera. So I think they're ready and willing. If we give them some form of direction, they're very open to that.
Good.
Okay, great. Yeah.
And
And
then,
I'm not knocking the Post Commission at all. It's just the recent ad hoc subcommittees. My understanding is they're not meeting publicly, or they haven't yet. So maybe
They are a standing, I think, part of their agendas. So they're giving full updates in the Post meetings. I believe at the last agenda I looked at in December, there's an informational item for each of 6 different subcommittees that they have here.
okay, but I don't think they're meeting notice. But anyway, this is not, I respect the Post Commission and the work. But I wanted to share the feedback that I've been getting. So do we have
so let me just, I don't want to belabor maybe I do want to belabor the point, but so I do think it's important for us to direct Post to come back with research after they've had public meetings on some things. But I think it would be
On the
great
complicated things.
on the complicated things, but I think it would be great if right here tonight, we could come up with a list of things that pass the first brush test of immediate things, right? Like, so with Ms. McKnight, she had a list of 6 things, and I think like the map and Cypress Hollow Park and committing to something at Zelinsky or an accessible playground at Zelinsky or Tether would be the same thing with me. And then putting a volleyball court in the reclamation pond site. I think those are unobjectionable and they have no public, this is just me talking. I haven't surveyed the entire town, but they have no public opposition for those four things. I think the lineal park idea, I think we need post, because I think that their idea is, let's come up with a big plan with a bunch of elements and we'll recommend them and prioritize them. And I think it would be really cool to have the public see their research and then them bring it to us. And then the same with the Bel Air Park. I think that they should have a public meeting on Bel Air Park, because I feel like that's the one that caused the most angst about them not having had public meetings. So if we could direct them to have a public meeting on that, it would be healthy.
What was the lineal, could you repeat you said something about the lineal park, but I don't.
Yeah, so there was, Ms. McKnight identified 6 things, and one of them was do something with the lineal park.
Got it. Yeah.
And I think I agree that that's a priority and it should happen as soon as possible. But I think that the post subcommittee is thinking about this in a lot of depth and has some really good ideas. Then we'd be well served if we directed them to continue with that, hold a public hearing at the post level, and then come to us with their ideas for that particular item. Because it's more complicated, as Vice Mayor Wellner said. It's just more complicated.
I would tend to agree with your list, except I don't think that installing volleyball facilities in the grassy field is in the same category as the others, since it's, as we've said before, it's in the crown jewel of our parks. So it's kind of a decision that the town has to make carefully. But with regard to the neighborhood parks, I'm all for moving forward as quickly as possible, with the possible exception, I suppose, of sounds like you're feeling Bel Air needs to have a public meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that all of the people who say the post commission didn't have public meetings, they were all talking about Bel Air. I mean, or 90% of them were, right? Like, am I missing that?
Well, so here's what I think. Post has set up their process. There's certainly, I think their process covers some of the items you mentioned already. I love the idea. One of the things I was going to also mention was, having us start looking at the inclusive playground at Zielinski Park. I think that that's something that I definitely would support. We got a lot of input about beach volleyball. I don't think we should tie it at this point to a site. I don't know that site.
That's not low hanging fruit, right? That's a decision.
Well, the location of it, but the idea that it can move forward is kind of low hanging fruit in my mind, that it could be somewhere in the park, but okay. And then, there was another thing.
But sorry, so to just really quick interruption. So in that case, can we direct
This-
post to go study volleyball?
I just mentioned the map. The
Yeah.
map. Okay. And then before we direct post, let's just first come up with the ideas that we have tonight, and then we'll figure out all the directions to post at the end, because I'm not sure. I thought we already directed them, in which case that previous direction would still allow them to look at these items you're talking about, Councilmember Ryan.
Okay, I don't think I think they did this on their own initiative. I don't think we directed them, but
Yeah, I think they did. That's my understanding also. I would love to give them some sort of direction tonight. I think, and maybe it may not be to Councilmember Wellner's point, it may not be a specific location, but I'd love to see volleyball get a little attention, because we have so many people that email and write, and it seems to be, especially on the agenda tonight, that's one that, thankfully we didn't get 96 emails about pickleball, but that was the one tonight that we got some attention on.
Yeah, I guess I think there's a tendency to react to the last group that's pinged us. And I know that there is a groundswell for volleyball, there's a groundswell for pickleball, there's a groundswell for a number of different categories. There's a limited amount of space in the park. Part of what the master plan did was identify for us through a survey what the priorities were. And then we asked them to acknowledge, and they did, that sometimes things change over time, so there could be more interest now, for example, in volleyball than there was when the survey was done and it wasn't a big priority. So, but I think decision-making about which of those should be done systematically by the council, informed by Post. I guess what I'm saying is the low-hanging fruit is the stuff that was mentioned. What really bothered me was when we talked about neighborhood parks that had been allowed to deteriorate. And so I think that's low-hanging fruit that everyone would agree should be, to the extent that something's muddy or needs to be mowed, or we need to put in a bench or a table to make things more comfortable. Those kinds of things in neighborhood parks that people were talking about, that's what I'm asking staff to kind of identify and tell us, will you fund this? Who's going to object to that? This is, just cleaning up and making Tiburon as livable and wonderful as possible. When it comes to actually deciding on a use, particularly in the Blackies Lineal Park area, that's where I think the council's deliberation, where we list the options, we look at the master plan that we spent a year, preparing. We say, okay, so the top 3 contenders are, and then I'm not going to say them because people will then say you left mine off, but the top 3 contenders, for this area are, we kind of deliberate about them, and then we, the council, speaking for the town, pick between uses and say, this is what goes here. So I don't think that can be offloaded to Post or anyone else. I think those are the kind of substantive decisions that the council has to make on the beautiful shared public resource that we have that's kind of the big park in front. What I'm hoping happens is that we get, and I don't think this is stuff necessarily, what I'm about to say is I don't think it's stuff that Post really needs to or wants to talk about. I just think it's the easy stuff that we might as well just fund and get done.
Yep.
And so that's what I'm hoping to get at our next meeting. And Holly, in response to you, I hear what you're saying. You want specific suggestions, but I guess I don't have them, in that I would like staff to tell us, to provide us that list. We can pick through it, say, oh no, that's actually a little controversial, let's take that off, but everything else is fine, that kind of thing. And then we can get it funded, and I think our residents will be delighted. They'll say, wow, you guys moved so fast. You cleaned this park up, you did what we asked you. So that's what I'm hoping happens here. But I hear you. I want to move on the other things. I want to be informed by Post, but I do think that the trade-off choices, the ones that require this but not that, are the ones that the council needs to make.
Yeah, I think that's a great delineation.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
Just want to mention another one, the kayak sup launch. I
Mhm.
think actually that's going to be a relatively easy thing for us to do. And water access has been a huge issue for our residents for a long time. So I'd love to see that one.
Yeah, that's an exciting one. I don't know is there any controversy about location, or do we have basically one location?
Controversy is we don't have a location, but that is a good example of one that cost us, that there's little cost associated with us devoting some staff time to looking for options. So I've been looking at the list of low-hanging fruit that was included in the plan, and that one jumped out at, that's one of the ones that jumped out at me. It's like, sure, if council wants us to focus on that, we're happy to devote time and work with. There's a subcommittee on Post with looking for that, so we're happy to accelerate that and start discussions. There's really no financial cost directly to the town, because it's staff time, which is limited. And that's one thing. That's the other thing I would mention, which is the Parks Master Plan identified a deficiency in the amount of labor we have that we devote to parks, to the tune of about 1.5 FTEs. So it's easy to say, oh, we need to better maintain this park or that park. But one of the reasons they're in the condition they're in is we are probably operating with a staffing level that's not adequate to maintain the parks we already have. It's not saying we can't make improvements, but you'll hear me say this probably a lot over the next several months. And, as we implement things, is let's not look at the master plan in individual pieces. Let's remember all the things it says, both in terms of what it's going to take from a financial perspective, particularly when you're adding new amenities, and then ongoing what that means for maintaining those amenities. At the same time, improving the level of service that we're giving to what we already have. So
that makes me feel like one of the low-hanging fruit items might be another staff person.
That's,
You know, if that's in fact what we need,
again, but that shouldn't, that can't be looked at in isolation of the rest of the town and the budget, you know, and sort of the big picture of what does revenue look like for the
We're,
next.
we're kind of
year.
veering off into a different discussion. So I'm gonna, you can figure out if you want to bring that up, Greg, during this or during the budget. But I want to get us focused back on implementation of the Parks Master Plan. So do we have any other ideas that people want to throw out there at the moment?
The only thing I want to call out is that the Bel Air Park, part of it was such low hanging fruit, and our staff is so awesome that they sort of already did what Vice Mayor Wellner said. Like, they went and they mowed it and they installed a new trash can, and by and large, all the residents were very happy with that. So I was super appreciative that
Yeah.
you guys took the
Yeah.
initiative and did that. I think that shows what we can do with this low hanging fruit type stuff.
Yeah, and I want to thank them. That came out of a walk that I did with the neighbors, and I noticed the items, and I asked our staff to go out there and take a look and see what could be done. So I also want to thank staff for that. They not only responded, but they responded really fast. And there were some items that, I didn't think were safe, like holes and stuff. And our staff went out there, our public works went out, and our town manager did an amazing job of responding really fast. And I think people were really happy. So thank you, Jack, for saying that. So anything else on that?
And we could also just direct staff to come back with any other items that we haven't included that they find and believe to be low hanging fruit, right?
Yeah,
You can always strike them if they.
that's great. This is a discussion item, but yeah, you can direct that. I think that's in line with what Vice Mayor Wellner was saying as
Yeah.
well. Okay, so is there anything else on this?
I mean, the fact that it's a discussion item, are you saying that we can't make any specific direction to post right now? Or can we do that?
It's just an item for discussion.
Okay.
Um,
Well, I will
so,
just say to
you know,
your,
I think
Right.
the voices have been heard loud and clear, and I think Post is already doing what we're asking.
agreed. And so I would encourage them to hold as many public meetings as they feel are necessary. And hopefully that's ample on every item, and come back when they're ready. So obviously some items are more nuanced and detailed, so we won't expect to see them before August or whatever. But things that are simpler and more straightforward, we should hear them sooner. So I would just leave it in Post's lap as to when to come back with their
Yeah,
various.
I think that's great. And then if they could also publish on either our town website or somewhere the list of these ad hoc committees and when they meet, I think that would be great for the public so that they can participate in whatever ones they can. That would be great. Any more comments, ideas on implementation of the Parks Master Plan? Okay. Okay, great. Now I'm going to go to action item 1 because I think it's a fast one, and that is committee assignments. Do we have a staff report? Lee?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Just a quick one. This is an annual item for the council to review and make any potential changes to the committee appointments list, which I am pulling up on screen here. 1 second, I'll share it so you can see it. And like I said, this is just an annual item for the council to consider any changes it would like to make for the coming year. Oops. And I know this is a lot, so I can zoom in.
I'm just
Previous
pulling
years,
yeah.
previous years, you've kind of gone through it sort of group by group. So happy to kind of walk through this however you would like.
Okay, so first let me ask I see a vacancy. Oh, no, that's not a vacancy. I don't think there's vacancies, right? I think the vacancies are for the task forces that are not really meeting. Yeah,
The two vacancies are for, this group is not really meeting. I believe maybe Councilmember Ryan could verify if the Chamber of Commerce Local Business Task Force is still meeting. I don't think it is.
It's not been now.
Yeah.
okay. So usually what we do is ask if anyone would like to get off of a committee. Okay, that's usually what we do. I can't,
I'm just looking through the list I think we're all just looking through the list as we speak to see if there's any comment.
great.
I don't think we've had public comment.
Thank you. Is there any public comment? Lee? I don't see any.
Seeing none.
Okay, great. Okay,
I think we could eliminate the Martha Property Applications Committee, since
Okay.
that issue appears to be finally and permanently settled
yes.
in a very positive way. So I don't know if that requires a vote or not, but we can just eliminate that committee.
I think it does.
We can vote on them one by one or at the end.
Okay, so
At the end.
one thing we'll do is eliminate that committee. Let's see if there's anything else people want to do.
I don't see any other.
Mayor Third, I don't know how overburdened you are as mayor this year, but do you have any interest, and don't scream, but in switching alternate and delegate for Marine Clean Energy this year? Do you want me to be the delegate so you don't have to do it?
I'd like to continue doing that one
Okay.
this year, but yeah.
Right, and we just set up the budget and the performance ones, so those are.
I would note two other committees that you may consider. There's the 2022 Court Usage Committee. If,
Yeah,
given the
wonder
the
that is.
discussion, the process you've all just gone through with the Parks Master Plan, it seems like that would be
Yeah, we could sunset that one.
something that would be sort of rolled into whatever
Yeah.
happens in the future. And then the Parks and Recreation Master Plan Committee seems like it would probably be sunsetted at this point, since that process is over. Unless you see a reason to keep it going. So
I think we hang on to that one.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I think we hang on to
Okay.
that one. Yeah,
Yeah, but the court usage one, we can. All
okay.
right.
Anything else?
The court usage one, was that that was when I was on post and we recommended a pilot.
Yeah, pickleball
Your
trial.
favorite thing, John, pilot at the tether courts for pickleball. And that one never really went anywhere once it got here.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Well, we were expecting to have a
I don't know.
found
could we
report
sun-
from the subcommittee, but
I mean, is there a report or?
Couldn't
I
find
don't
it.
know if we could should we be sunsetting that one when we haven't?
Well,
figured-
I wonder if we were to go back to the item about low hanging fruit. I wonder if the mission of that board was, piloting a pickleball program at Tether. Do you think that's low hanging fruit, or do you think that's?
well, the master plan identified Tether as a possible site for a number of different things. So including it's something I think the swimming pool committee is looking at. So I don't know that we should be making.
Okay, wait.
About
We
Tether,
can't
fine.
go back to the other agenda item. We're on this.
No,
one.
I was asking if we should go back. I wasn't
Okay.
going back.
Oh, okay. So let's first look at the court usage. I kind of think, I just want to throw out there, I think we should check in with Councilmember Fredericks before.
Oh, that's probably a good idea.
And out of respect to her, she's also sick, or I don't know. That's what I
Yes.
think. So let's not sunset that one until, we have some input. Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, going back to the other questions, just to finish this item, are there any changes that any other things that should sunset or, yeah,
That's-
To me,
that's what I
like
need.
Martha's the one.
Yep.
okay. Okay, so then, why don't is there a motion?
Oh, sure. So move to keep everything the same except for to eliminate the Martha, what was it called? The Martha Application Committee? Martha Property Applications Committee.
I'll second that.
Okay. And then I'll just ask staff, it doesn't need to be part of the motion, but to check in with Alice about that committee. And then someday we could sunset it if we need to. Okay, there was a second? Jack,
Yeah.
Second.
we have a vote.
So I'll call the roll call. Councilmember Fredericks is absent. Councilmember Nick Farr. Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wellner.
Yes.
And Mayor Thier.
Yes. Okay, so, next I want to go to public hearing 3, municipal code amendments regarding the ADU ordinance. And I think there's a staff report.
We do have a staff report this evening. Savannah Van Aken, who is our associate planner, who you haven't had the privilege of meeting yet, is going to provide that staff report. Thank you.
Give us a moment. We have a little technology to switch around here and we'll get the presentation up on the screen.
Thank you. And on this one, I just want to let everyone in the public know, we're gonna do the staff presentation first, and then we'll have public comment so that you get to see the presentation before you comment.
Good evening, council members. Before you tonight is the repeal and replace of Chapter 16-52.100, regulating accessory dwelling units, ADUs, and junior accessory dwelling units, JADUs. The purpose of this update is to account for the changes made to state ADU laws since June 2023, and to update the structure and formatting to make the permitting procedure clear for applicants. Updates made to Chapter 16-52.100 were done to be in compliance with the changes made per state law. Some of these changes include updating the permitting procedures and requirements for ADUs, updating the height and parking restrictions per state law, further clarifying JADU location, bathroom, and entrance requirements, and updating the tree removal and objective design standards so they are objective and in compliance with state law. Additional changes were made to update the formatting and readability of the chapter, including updating important definitions, creating a development standards table that is easy for the public to read, clarifying objective design standards, and clarifying what qualifies for ministerial review. A list of the changes were provided as Exhibit 3, and all of these changes can be reviewed through the red line document provided as Exhibit 2, showing the existing and proposed changes to the ADU ordinance together in one document. Staff recommends the approval of the resolution and the repeal and replacement of Chapter 16-52.100, regulating ADUs and JADUs, as the changes clean up the formatting, making the ordinance more readable, and include changes that are necessary for compliance with state law. This concludes staff presentation, but we are happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you so much. do we have questions?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
So, other than the sort of cosmetic and clarifying changes, are all the changes that are in here mandated by state law, or are some of them just kind of voluntary discretionary changes that we're making now?
Do you want to answer that?
Thank you for that question. It's both. So it's both per state law and staff initiated changes.
Okay, so could you identify for us the staff initiated changes that are not required by state law so that we can understand what those are?
Sure, I can actually provide just one moment. So here we have a list in detail of some of the changes that we removed or added. We updated some of the definitions. We included
I might be able
clarification
to-
for objective design standards.
Um,
We added a roof deck subsection so that is clear that it requires additional review and is not a part of this objective requirements. And we included clarification for exterior lighting and updated the material review.
Okay, so that's the extent of the changes that weren't mandated. Is that right?
This is an overview list.
And nothing is different than what the planning commission based their recommendation on. This is the identical thing to what they recommended. Is that
That's
true?
correct. That's correct.
Thank you.
So do any of these, would any of these possibly violate state law, though?
No. They would not. Are you concerned about any one of them in particular, Mayor?
Um, And is the ministerial review, how is it different than what the state the state rules are?
It doesn't differ. We go through the ministerial approval process as per state law.
Okay. Okay, and then okay. Okay, does anyone have questions?
I think mine have been addressed.
Okay, so any more from our staff that you'd like to present?
No, we've completed our presentation. We're available for any questions and further clarification.
Okay, great. Anyone else have questions?
I do not.
Isaac? Okay, so do we have a motion?
I think public comment.
Public comment?
Public comment? Is there public comment?
Seeing none.
Okay, and then I'm gonna bring it back. I did have a comment. I would like to see us, I would like to see us go for the more than one bedroom. I would like to see us mirror the state standard of 1,200 square feet on the ADU ordinance. And I wanted to hopefully get my colleagues' approval on that. Again, that would allow for another bedroom. And I think it would help us meet our housing element commitments as well and encourage more people to do ADUs.
So I'd like to ask our town council, I'm not sure what you mean
So,
by mirroring state law. If, I think everything that's mandated by state law is already in here, right?
right, however, the state law allows for, ADUs to be up to 1,200 square feet if there's more than one bedroom. And that actually allows for an additional bedroom, which would allow a family to occupy an ADU. So I'm asking that in that respect, instead of, if you look at the red line draft, it says 1,000 square feet. I would like that to read 1,200 square feet.
I think an easier way to say it is you're looking to mirror the state, right? Rather than,
That's what I said.
than something that's mandated by the state. Because you can do less than what the state allows for.
To do what the maximum of what the
Yeah,
state allows as
yeah.
opposed to what we currently have.
That's
And-
right.
Exactly. Sorry, I am very sick and I think you can all figure
No,
it
we
out.
understand now. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm not inclined to do that. I think we had a robust discussion when this initially happened about trying to balance the permission that we give folks to proceed without any discretionary review versus the impact on neighbors. At the time, I think we concluded that something greater than 10,000 square feet probably merited neighbors being able to opine on the impact of that on their views. And so I'm not inclined to do that. I'm not sure what other people think.
I also would prefer to stay with the 1,000 square feet.
I think it makes a lot of sense for us to mirror what the state has done here. I think I don't understand the rationale. Again, it predates my time on town council, but the rationale for keeping the number low, I haven't seen it.
It's just that it has anything that gets ministerially approved, there is no neighbor input sort of by definition. And so we were concerned that this will have a greater impact on neighbors. And my sense is that the neighbors, broadly speaking, as the town residents, are not inclined to be happy with that. And they'd be happier with the smaller ministerial approval number.
Yeah, but I mean, the way I look at it is that we're under a mandate right now to build housing and to build affordable housing. And we're using ADUs as a vehicle to do that. And, you know, we just, with our housing element and with trying to create more affordability in Tiburon, this is an opportunity to allow, you know, a family to live together. And it allows for one more bedroom. We're talking about 200 square feet. So if we were talking about 1,600 square feet, I would agree with you and with John. However, when we're talking 200 square feet, that would be basically one additional bedroom that I think would encourage more people to build ADUs and to rent them to families. And it would help us to build more affordable housing here in Tiburon and also help us to meet our housing element mandates in the future. So I do think it's a really important topic, and that's why I'm bringing it up again, because we have seen that, you know, with our recent housing element, that the ADUs and the JADUs do contribute to our affordable housing. So that's why I'm bringing it up again. I do think it's super important, and I don't think it's that much space that it would be something that the residents might not understand.
I have a question for staff. I think there's an open question about, I mean, regardless of what the state requires and accepts as affordable housing, I think there's an open question as to whether or not ADUs in our community are primarily used as rentals for low-income families versus as adjuncts to people's homes that are either, you know, pool houses or offices or other spaces. So I don't know that if we have a way of knowing, but I guess I'd like to ask staff if we know to what extent ADUs are actually used as rentals versus as adjuncts for families that already live there.
So we can't say definitely because we have not surveyed people, but our intent is to survey them in the future because we need to do that in order to show HCD that we're actually meeting some of the goals for affordability as well. So I don't know how many are rented, but when I did look to see how many were rented, sort of just doing a little search, I found one, but it was not affordable. So it's hard for me to tell you that, but I think a lot of them are done as additional uses for the home, but I actually won't know unless we survey people. And the survey wouldn't be, I don't know if we can require one, but we definitely are going to send out surveys to people who have built them to understand what they're using them for, as well as when people come in. So in the new year, I'm going to be instituting that. So I can't
Okay.
tell you that today, Vice Mayor.
Thank you. I guess my only comment is that I think you're a good advocate and you paint a lovely picture of wanting to have lots of families move in to these homes, but I don't think that's what they're being used for. And so I'm not inclined to expand the size of them.
Yeah, I'm not either. I mean, I understand both sides of the argument. I just think that this is what our residents want.
I I guess I'll add one other thing. I think they're a reasonably key part of our housing element. And I think, and I said this, through the election last year as well. I think we need to have incentives to build ADUs. I think they're a way for us to have sustainable growth in Tiburon, throughout the peninsula, that isn't high density downtown. And I think if increasing the square footage to match the state maximum helps do that, I think we should exhaust every effort to ensure that we are meeting our quota. And I think this is one pretty simple way that we can do that. I think there are other ways outside of this agenda item, like, financial incentives and other things like that. But I think this is one really easy way for us to, to go back to our parks master plan. We like low hanging fruit. This is a pretty low hanging fruit way of incentivizing people to build ADUs.
Yeah, I agree. And I also think that this was what the Planning Commission originally recommended multiple times to us after extensive hearings. So the idea that the public isn't for this, I mean, I just don't see where that comes from.
Well,
I know that in my neighborhood, one of our neighbors built an ADU and they rent it, and everybody thinks it's a good idea. So I
Well,
don't.
certainly part of where it's coming from is that almost every single person who was frustrated with the RENA requirements bemoaned the lack of local control, and they were mad that the state was telling us how to run our housing program and allowable, how many residents we should have. So I think that's the sort of a counter argument to this being good for the state policy. Like, I don't know that our residents want to be giving up all of our control to this, to think that the state mandates are the good answer.
Well, it's not giving up control, and I see it as different than the arena argument. And the only reason I see it differently is because you're talking about 200 square feet. The state has already mandated ADUs, so we're not talking about the initial ADU ordinance. We cannot go back and not have an ADU ordinance. But this is something that would allow residents to build more affordable housing. So I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I'll make a motion that we approve the changes with 1,200 square feet.
Second.
And if I may, it's actually a motion to read by title only and carry the motion and read the title of the draft ordinance. So you'd have to make all of that as part of your motion.
Okay, thank you. I make that all as part of my motion.
Do I need to re-second that? All right, second.
I'm sorry. Mayor, would you like me to read the title of the ordinance?
That would be great if you don't mind. I'm not sure my voice is gonna hold up.
A Town of Tiburon Town Council ordinance for the repeal and replacement of chapter 26 chapter 16-52.100 of the Tiburon Municipal Code regulating accessory dwelling units, ADUs, and junior accessory dwelling units, JADUs. And now we're looking for, motion we're looking for is to pass first reading of the ordinance based on your initial motion as amended, to waive further reading and to set the ordinance for final approval and adoption on the consent calendar at the next regular meeting.
Thank you. So moved. You should be on the town council, Lee.
Second.
And the roll call vote, Councilmember Fredericks is absent, Councilmember Nick Farr,
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan,
No.
Vice Mayor Wellner,
No.
and Mayor Thier.
Yes.
It's close.
Okay.
So I'll move all the same stuff without the amendment.
And I'll second that.
Councilmember Fredericks is absent, Councilmember Nick Farr,
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wellner,
Yes.
and Mayor Thier.
Yes, but I'm not gonna stop trying to convince you guys.
Fair.
Okay, so now we are moving on to public hearing number 1. Do we have a staff report?
You want to go to 1 and not 2?
I think 1, yeah.
Okay. We're just moving around here. Okay. Good evening, Mayor and council members. What you have before you tonight as public hearing number 1 is 202 Trestle Glen. It's a consideration of a general plan and zoning map amendment from PD-R/RPD to MH-R1. And this is an introduction and first reading of the ordinance. So just a little background, the property at 202 Trestle Glen actually measures 24,730 square feet. And a portion of that property, which measures about 11,700 square feet, was acquired in 2018 from the property owner at 5 Trestle Glen. And there were 2 parcels at that time. And then the 2 parcels were merged to create a larger parcel. The acquired parcel of 11,700 square feet is currently, as I said, it's stated before, PD-R/RPD, which is different from the rest of the lot, which was the existing lot at 202 Trestle Glen, which is zone MH/R1. So the intent of the project before you, or the approval before you tonight, is to make the general plan and zoning designation of the entire lot consistent by creating one lot that is MH/R1, so that the property owner can improve that property with the same standards. So just so you can get a picture of what I was talking about. So this piece here where my little laser is 202 Trestle Glen without the additional property from 5 Trestle Glen. And the green portion is that piece of 11,000 square feet that was purchased from 5 Trestle Glen here and merged as one. So hopefully that makes a little bit more sense, because I had to look at it several times before I understood it. And there is a view easement there that will remain. And that easement is for the properties at the part of the residential plan development above at 5, 3, and 1 Trestle Glen. So part of the analysis that we looked at was the portion of the property that was added has this designation of PDR and a zoning designation of RPD. And it wasn't changed when they did the lot line adjustment. So when the applicant came in for some improvements, that had to happen first in order for us to be able to comply with all the standards. And if this amendment is approved or adopted tonight, it'll result in a consistent zoning throughout that entire area. So the proposed general plan change is appropriate because the subject property, as I stated, is no longer part of that other PD. So that PD no longer really relates. The MH designation is consistent with the existing and proposed uses of the property in that neighborhood. And it's also consistent with the proposed uses of the property. And the proposed change in zoning from RPD to R1 is appropriate because, as it's kind of sound like a broken record, but it's because the property is no longer part of the Tiburon Glen precise plan. It's consistent with the requirements of the zone. It's consistent with the general plan designation of MH, and the change of the zone will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare of the town. There was an initial study that was conducted and prepared and circulated beginning in November. The initial study concluded that all potential impacts would be less than significant. The Planning Commission has recommended adoption of a resolution for the negative declaration. And I should have probably put this one before, but the Planning Commission held a public hearing on December 11th. We had no comments on this application. What is in your packet is one comment that you received, and that comment relates to any site plan and review that we do in the future, that we would have to look at those conditions and apply them accordingly. The commission adopted resolution 2024-012, recommending approval of the amendment to the general plan and zoning designation for the property at 202 Trestle Glen, and adoption of a negative declaration pursuant to CEQA to town council. So what we recommend is that you hold a public hearing and consider testimony, adopt the negative declaration resolution, move to read by title only and carry the motion, then read the title of the ordinance and hold a roll call vote to pass the first reading, waiving any additional readings. If passed for first reading, the ordinance will be scheduled for adoption at the next regular meeting. And with that, I am available for questions.
Okay, do we have questions?
I do not.
Anyone else have questions? Okay, I am not seeing questions. Is that a hand, Jack?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, okay. Okay. I'll bring it to the council for any discussion, and then I'll take public comment.
We should do the public comment first, Mayor.
Yeah. Okay, we'll take public comment now. Thank you. Is there any public comment?
Seeing none.
Okay, great. So I'll bring it to the council for discussion or a motion.
I think it just fixes something that's inconsistent right now. And so I'd support it, and I'll make a motion if no one else has a discussion. I'll move that we adopt the draft resolution approving the negative declaration and the general plan amendment, and adopt the draft ordinance approving the zoning map amendment.
And it's actually moving to waive the first reading and read by title only and bring back for us. We're just introducing tonight. There's a typo on the agenda that we're adopting. We're introducing.
I add that to my motion. Thank you.
Okay.
I
is
feel
there
like we wear blonde wigs, like when we have that boilerplate language.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes.
is there Okay, great. Why don't we have a vote, Lee?
Councilmember Fredericks is absent. Councilmember Nick Farr.
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wellner.
Yes.
Mayor Thier.
Yes. Okay. So now we are moving on at public hearing 2. And I know that we have a staff report. Also,
do.
Vice Mayor John Wellner is going to run this portion of the meeting because it's very difficult for me to run it from the Zoom. So I'm going to turn my audio off and let John take over.
Okay. Thank you.
We do have a staff report to be presented by Sam Bonifacio.
Let us begin with the staff report.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here and for your time. There's a lot to go over, so I'm going to try to go through it quickly, but there will be time at the end for questions. So if there's anything that was skipped over or not explained, I'm happy to go back to it. The item before you is an appeal of the site plan and architectural review application that was approved to allow the construction of an approximately 1,400 square foot deck and approximately 200 square foot stairwell connecting an existing deck to the new deck at the property located at 16 Place Milan. This is just some background showing the location for context. So Place Milan is located off of Sugarloaf Drive. It's a very steep street. As you can see here, properties are primarily concentrated at the top of the street, and then they have sloped rear yards that go back that abuts town-owned open space. Well, jumped ahead, sorry. We're a little out of order, but that's okay. In terms of a review, the application was actually initially received in October of 2023, and then the public hearing was held in October 2024 at a design review board meeting. At the conclusion of this meeting, the board directed staff to return at a future meeting with a resolution conditionally approving the application and adding an additional requirement that a screen is added to the new stairwell prior to the issuance of a building permit in response to the concern of discussion regarding privacy. That resolution was adopted at the November 21st, 2024 meeting, and then an appeal was filed in December. Which brings us to tonight. Again, just to show the existing and proposed conditions here on the left, this is the left elevation of the property. So as you can see, Place Milan is here. The house is accessed through a garage at the street level, and then there are 2 floors to the home. This is the existing rear elevation, so you can see there's an existing deck up here, and then the lower floor of the home is there. So this project would allow for a new deck to be constructed. It would be connected to the lower level of the home, and then an exterior stairwell would be constructed to connect the existing deck on the upper floor with the lower deck. Let's see. There were 7 grounds for appeal that were submitted. Detailed response for each appeal is included in the staff report, but again, I'm going to go over them briefly. The first basis for appeal was that the DRB's voting for the approval of the application violated the Brown Act. And staff's response is that the board's approval is in compliance with the Brown Act because the Brown Act does not regulate the number of votes required to take action. The board is also in compliance with the municipal code, which requires a majority vote of the quorum to take action. Expanding upon that in appeal basis number 2, that because of the potential impacts of this application on public policy, require that it be considered by the full board of the DRB. The Brown Act authorizes a majority of the legislative body. The design review board is comprised of 5 members, so majority would be 3 members. On October 17th, and as well as the November 21st meeting, the board had a quorum of at least 3 members, and a majority of the quorum took action to approve the project with conditions. Ground 3 was that the DRB's approval was inconsistent with Tiburon Municipal Code sections. I'm just going to refer to it as the guiding principles moving forward. And was an error and or abuse of discretion because there's an indication that the project might result in significant adverse environmental impacts requiring additional review by the DRB. For context, any application that's submitted for site plan and architectural review, design review that includes new structures, any landscaping or dense vegetation, those are sent to the fire district for review. And after review of this application, the Tiburon Fire Protection District did not mandate any changes or additional requirements to the location, size, or height of the deck. They did acknowledge, however, that if it was approved and it moved forward to the building stages, that it would need to show compliance with all applicable building and fire codes. Construction details are not required during the planning stage, so that's why there's an additional review before the building permit is issued. And for that reason, we added condition number 15 to the resolution, which required that additional review before any building permit could be issued. Let's see. The next three bases for appeal relate to the guiding principles and kind of consistency with other decks that have been developed in the vicinity. Try that again. So I'm going to read those and then go into further examples in the next few slides. Sorry, it's been a long night. All right. So ground 4 was that the DRB's approval was inconsistent with the guiding principles because the project is not consistent with other residentially developed lots that have installed decking in lieu of additions to the rear property. Appeal 5 was that the project's improvements are not solely attached to the existing dwelling's lower level, and privacy screening that currently exists will not protect 18 Place Moulin, which is the property owned by the appellant. And ground number 6 was that there was an error and/or abuse of discretion because the height, size, and bulk of the proposed project is not reasonably related to the character of the existing buildings in the vicinity. Before I talk about this, just a general overview. Applications before the town are reviewed on a case-by-case basis. Each lot is evaluated independently based on elements such as topography, size, and existing structures on the lot. But we also look at things such as neighborhood character. Typically with these applications, there are development standards per zone. So when you have an R1 zone, you have a set limitation for height, lot coverage, floor area, setbacks. This project is located in a precise development plan, which when it was established, it did not establish any development standards. So there's no minimum setback, no minimum height, no minimum lot coverage. So this application was looked at both in terms of comparing it to what a typical residential zone would allow, and then also what other lots in the precise plan have been developed currently. So the first item that we looked at was lot coverage. For reference, other residential zones in the town allow between either 15 to 30% lot coverage. So essentially the footprint of structures on a lot. I looked at the average lot coverage in the precise development plan, and it was 20%, and that's of developed lots. The subject application is requesting a 21.6% lot coverage, so that seems to be in line with other homes that have been developed. As we looked at previously, it is a very the lots within this precise plan are extremely sloped. They have challenging topography, so the majority of homes do have at least one deck. Many properties in the vicinity have multiple decks on different levels because they aren't able to build on those steep rear yards. Looking at other decks, they are located off of existing living areas at various levels. As you'll see on future slides, larger lots and those with deeper yards are more appropriate locations for larger decks. So you'll see that there are some more shallow lots that would not be appropriate for larger or higher decks. Let's see. And then finally, decks have been approved with adequate setbacks to account for change in elevation between properties and the height and footprint of existing dwellings. Here you can see that the side of the street on which 16 Place Moulin is located, and I think that's more relevant. These are all of the lots that are within the Mount Tiburon precise development plan. But really, when we're looking at trying to compare topography and what's appropriate, we're really concentrating on this side just because the lots are more uniform. So you can see here that they slope both down the street and then they slope away from the property. It's kind of hard to see, I apologize, but the lots at the beginning of the street are shorter, so the decks are closer to the homes. This is another overview of that side of Place Moulin. So it's showing the depth of yards, the existing vegetation, and then because of that, where the existing decks are located. You can see where there are numbers for 2 and 3, that's when there are multiple level decks that you wouldn't be able to see from this. Let's see. The height allowances are not uniform because each property is unique. Given that the subject property has a wider yard, it seems reasonable to allow for a larger deck in comparison to a lot like if you look at 6 Place Moulin, which is substantially smaller. And similarly, 18 Place Moulin, which is located at the base of the property, it seems reasonable that they would have larger decks based on their elevation, as you can see here. Just this is a comparison of kind of where the heights are based on their location on the street. Okay. This is showing, in terms of site relation, the existing home at 16 Place Moulin at its closest location right now. So if we're looking at what we would typically refer to as setbacks, right in this corner, the house reaches 3 feet 6 inches to the property line, so it's close. The new structures at the closest location right here, this is 3 feet from the property line. And as it expands out, the stairwells here, it's about 16 feet. And then the furthest point on the deck is about 36 feet, 10 inches from the property. For reference, in other zones, side yard setbacks, which is, that area where we do not permit structures, typically that distance ranges from 6 feet to 20 feet, and decks are allowed to encroach 3 feet into that side setback. So if we're comparing it to typical non-RPD zones, the allowable distance would be 3 feet to 17 feet. However, in the absence of these standards, other properties have been permitted to place structures more closer. So this is just a comparison. At 10 Place Moulin, you have 8'10" on this side and 11'9". 18 Place Moulin, which is the property right next door, they were permitted to build, you can see here, the deck is 2 feet 6 inches. So the allowances for setbacks does change based on the topography, et cetera. But the examples within the precise plans support the locations proposed by the applicant. Regarding screening, this is just examples of the existing conditions on the left here. This picture was taken from the upper deck at 16 Place Moulin, and this photo was taken inside the home at 18 Place Moulin. And then these are also from the lower yard at 18 Place Moulin. So it's just showing the existing vegetation, height of trees, and the concrete screening wall between the two properties. The last basis for appeal was that the proposed condition for a 6-foot tall privacy screen is not described with any specificity, and regardless would not adequately protect the privacy of the property at 18 Place Moulin. After discussion, public comment, discussion, and site visits, the design review board did identify the corner of the stairwell that they thought would be most impacted in terms of privacy from 18 Place Moulin looking up to 16. And for that reason, they imposed condition 11, which states a 6-foot tall privacy screen shall be installed at the exterior stairwell in a similar design shown on the applicant's presentation. So these are the photos that the applicant provided that staff has for reference. Should this be upheld, we would be able to reference this design. So in addition to the style and materials, the board did also provide the location and height of the screen. Moving forward from there, the recommended actions, we recommend that town council conducts a public hearing on this matter, deliberate, and then consider adopting one of the following options. Briefly, that is, you may deny the appeal, upholding the approval made by the design review board, or grant the appeal, denying the application. With either of those options, you would be directing staff to come back at a future meeting with a resolution memorializing that. The other options would be to partially grant the appeal by making revisions or adding conditions to the design review board's approval. And then we would also come back at a future meeting to adopt that. Alternately, you may remand the item to the design review board again with specific directions. Yes, and I'm here if you have any questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Oh, no, it's John, sorry.
Oh, well, you can go ahead if you like.
I just wanted to thank Samantha. That was an awesome presentation. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so I think next, what we have is the appellant's presentation. You have up to 10 minutes. Please introduce yourself and let us know the basis for appeal. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, fine. So this is just forwards, backwards, and then you just point.
Yeah.
Yeah, the little laser is red and then the microphone.
So this will advance it.
Yes. And then for any reason it doesn't work.
And how do we expand that so it's full size?
Oh, we will do that. She's pulling it up.
She'll do that?
Yeah. And then when you want to pull up the second picture, and then, let her know.
I don't know.
So we're gonna switch.
Okay.
Oh, you want to add that after.
Probably gonna be asking her to
Good.
do. Okay. So good evening, Mayor and Town Council members. My name is Mike Lamphere. I'm a local attorney here in Marin. I represent Cliff Alm and his sons in this matter. They're the owners of 18 Place Milan and the appellants in this matter. Cliff is here with his sons tonight because this is really an intensely personal matter to him and his family. Mr. Alm is a longtime resident of Tiburon. He purchased 18 Place Milan with his wife in the 1990s. He's been here 35 years. They raised their family there, and his wife unfortunately passed away recently, but Mr. Alm and his sons live there, and they keep the memory of Mrs. Alm alive and well in being good stewards for their home that she loves so much. As I said, this is a personal matter for the Alms because we really feel that this proposed deck is way out of line and out of character with the neighborhood, and we'll get into that in a second. But also it violates the privacy that they've enjoyed for so many years. As you know from our notice of appeal, we've opposed the Design Review Board's approval of the deck and the stairwell on a number of grounds, but I don't have time to go through all of them tonight, so I'm going to focus on a couple of key ones. Grounds 4 and 5 combined, we argue that the project is inconsistent with other residentially developed lots that have installed decks in lieu of additions to the rear of their property. And I will get to that in a second about installing decks to the rear of the property on a terraced hillside. That is an option where a nice deck could go. But applicant has chose to do an elevated deck. The second point we've made is that inconsistent with the neighborhood standards is the size and height of this deck. Consequently, it was error for the Design Review Board to approve the project without requiring changes to address these factors. As we've stated, the DRB and at a number of hearings previously, this is a massive deck. It would be 1,400 square feet in size with an additional 200 square foot stairwell. The stairwell is 6 feet wide for access. Moreover, from the ground below to the top of the deck railings, it would stand as high as 27 feet high. That's 27 feet above grade. From Mr. Alm's perspective at his home, there would be a direct line of sight from the deck into his front yard, his living room, his family room, his kitchen. Basically, it's a line of sight straight through his home. The proposed stairwell descends from the main level of the deck for 16 Place Milan. That is their main deck. That's the deck they already have in place, which is an exterior deck and elevated. And from then it would drop down to within 3 feet of what is a privacy wall. The privacy wall was built in the early 2000s, specifically for these kinds of situations to screen. And that stairwell comes within 3 feet, so close you could reach out and put your hands on top of the wall. And it separates the two properties. Staff suggests that the reviewed lot size and lot coverage, including decks, approved from other properties in the Mount Tiburon precise plan, and that several properties in the plan have multiple decks and balconies, including applicant's property, which has 6 decks. That's my client. With all respect, this is not an accurate summary. We don't believe staff has had a chance yet really to specify the type of deck in their research where we have. And what we did is we looked at specifically elevated decks. If you group in grade decks, you'll get a shot like we saw in the diagram from the staff presentation. But if we look here at our presentation, we've looked at the surrounding neighborhood, and in red, you'll see elevated decks in the neighborhood. Now, the first thing that comes really leaping off the page is that some properties, 1, 11, and my client's 18, have no elevated decks. My client does have around 5 decks. They're all around the circumference of the property, and they're all at grade. So yes, they might come within 2 feet of the privacy wall, but they're below and hidden by the privacy wall. They're not elevated. We do see red zoned elevated decks around the neighborhood. And what's striking is they're small in size. The one at 16 is in red is what exists right now, and the orange shaded area is what would be expanded by this elevated deck system. I think you can see just eyeballing it that it would be larger than any other elevated deck system in the neighborhood right now, and yet the size of its home is maybe 1/3 the size of 11 or 1. None of the elevated decks look into other neighboring properties, whereas this one would look straight down into it. Our decks are set below the privacy wall. This deck would be above it. Comparing elevated deck sizes in the neighborhood, the deck proposed at 16 would be the largest ever approved in this neighborhood, except for maybe 15 Place Moulin, which you can see next to 11. And that elevated deck structure does not impact everyone. It has a view of hillside and open space down below, but not the close proximity that this would have to my client's property. We see the next slide. This is an aerial view diagram of what we're talking about. If you add the proposed deck structure to the existing main level deck, you come out with a footprint that basically doubles the size of the home. This does not occur in any other property in this neighborhood. The sheer size of the proposed deck as compared to the size of other properties is staggering. If you take away the garage, we believe this is the largest footprinted deck system, not only in this area, maybe in surrounding Tiburon. Staff alerted the council that it may want to consider if the location of the deck and the stairwell properly relate to the subject in the appropriate sites, and we believe it does not reasonably relate. Then there's ground 5. Ground 5 is a privacy objection. We stated to the DRB that this violates privacy for my client, line of sight into family rooms, living rooms, kitchen, front yard. Consequently, it was error for the DRB to approve it without changes to address these factors. And what we see in these slides is our representation with a local architect that we used, that the red lines are the new deck and the stairwells to the new deck. We do have a tree that provides some screening here. And this is a shot from out of my client's living room window. And once again, you can clearly see the red line deck that would be, but there's a tree. The problem with that is the tree is not going to be there. So my client has consulted with John Black of Tree Pros. He's worked extensively on my client's property because my client has a wonderful treed forest down below, which he maintains yearly, and he works with the water district to do so. But this tree that's embedded in the deck, and if we could zoom in, we can see its root structure or its trunk. More down to the left. Yes. Can we just expand that? Oh, I thought it would be easy just to zoom in. Anyway, the tree of that trunk is encased in the deck. It no longer has a round trunk. It has a square trunk, and it's going to rip apart the deck and its root system is dying. Mr. Black has suggested the tree be removed. If the tree is removed, then we have this. Now, this is terribly upsetting to my client. No one would want someone, after you lived somewhere for 35 years, to have this vantage point with numerous people looking down straight into your home. There's really nothing he can do at this point to shield it if this project is allowed. We recommend that, as staff recommended, there's options here. We think the fourth option should be adopted by the council, which is to remand this item back to the DRB with specific instructions. Those instructions should be to relocate the stairwell away from the privacy wall, more to the middle of the property, lower and set the deck back so it's not visible from 18 Place Milan, and reduce the size of the deck, which may involve breaking it into smaller units. All of these recommendations were made by Jim Malott at the last DRB hearing. He is a very, as you know, a very well-respected Tiburon architect. He's probably done over 500 architectural designs in Tiburon. He had a number of comments at the October 17th hearing. What's my time? Okay. He said that this is an enormous deck. It's the biggest deck that I believe can recall Tiburon coming before the board. It's 25 feet high in the air. It's made of wood and steel frames and would be incredibly noisy for the surrounding neighborhood. He said it's just out of scale with the house at 16 Place Milan in the neighborhood, and he voted to strongly oppose the project. He would have been in favor of redesigning it so that it was consistent with these privacy concerns and so that it also stayed in character with the rest of the neighborhood. And with that, is my time up? It is? Okay.
It is.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. All right, next we have the applicant's representative, gets 10 minutes to present their viewpoint.
John,
So please introduce yourself and.
Hi, I'm Daria Hosseinian. I am the owner at 16 Place Milan, fellow town council. So this is our presentation for 16 Place Milan. As you can see from this aerial picture, the orientation of 18 Place Milan is facing a different direction. The one picture that he did show of that one window is the back window of the back of the house. His whole front is over here facing this direction. He's not sitting here looking at our deck. This is probably more in line with the visual representation of the deck. Other visuals that we just saw made it look a lot bigger. But we'll get into that. So here's 5 of the 6 decks that 18 Place Milan has. Given the fact that our house is just naturally higher up on the hill, obviously the elevation of everything will be higher. They're lower, and that's why it's easier for them to have decks at a lower grade level. If you look at, for example, this one and all of these decks, basically they can be accessed from the house. And that's part of the reason that we have our deck where it is. We want to be able to access it from our house and be able to use it. It doesn't make sense to go outside the house, come down some side stairs and get into this. It's basically not worth it for us. We want to kind of have a backyard. So that's kind of the thought process here. You know, to have 6 decks and tell us not to have a deck is kind of seems unreal and unrealistic. One of the decks has a basketball court. You can basically play basketball and have plenty of space to run around. As they said, they were able to raise their kids. Their kids are now in their 20s and 30s. Our kids are 2 and 4 months. We want to be able to do the same thing that they did. I mean, we're not asking for anything unreasonable. And as Samantha pointed out, you know, at 21.6%, we didn't see any facts behind Mr. Lamphier's deck claims. We're at 21.6%. It's around the average. So we're not being egregious here. If you look at the 20 Place Milan deck, you'll see that they've got, you know, a large deck as well with a swimming pool, hot tub and everything. 19 Place Milan's got a big backyard. But also given the way that the lot is situated, they don't need to raise it. They don't need to make it, you know, put posts and everything to keep it so that it can be accessed from the house. These can all be accessed at grade. Well, not all of these, but some of them. And also this is on the other side of Place Milan, not on our side, where it's a lot more steep. Our original deck proposal was 30 feet. We actually offered to pull it back 25 feet after Samantha showed us some pictures from 18 Place Milan. So that way there is no privacy issue at all. You'll see here, the original proposal, it's kind of hard to see here, but you might be able to see some story poles. Whereas when we moved it back, there's nothing to be seen. Now, Mr. Lamphere is saying that this tree is in bad health. I have yet to see anything. It's been here for 30 years. Anybody can say a tree is in bad health. And if it is in bad health, I suggest they plant another tree to create the privacy again and ensure that there is privacy for both parties, not just for him. It's a mutual need for privacy. If you look straight on, you can see this is pretty hilly and sloped, basically unusable. What we're proposing is the deck to be off of the bottom level, so that way, you know, the kids can go onto the deck, or if we want, access it from the upper deck. If we bring it too far down, I mean, it's basically unusable. Here is another shot of our house, and you can see where 18 Place Milan is. You see how far away that is. I mean, this is really what it is. The whole house is facing this direction. I mean, there's one window back here. I don't believe that you'll see these decks are not being used ever. And there's one window. So to basically appeal this deck because of one back window seems, again, unreasonable, especially given, look at these trees. I mean, all of these trees that are separating our house and this massive distance between the houses. There were attempts made to reach out to 18 Place Milan on multiple occasions. Early 2024, we left a card, bottle of wine. Hey, here's our number. Why don't you get in touch with us? We want to chat, get your input. No response. March 18th, Samantha tried reaching out to the neighbor. No response. April 9th, still no response. But Mr. Lamphere was curious about the status. He was waiting for us to apply. There was no good faith effort made to discuss with us. On June 14th, our architect reached back out to Mr. Lamphere for feedback. Their response was, we'll get back to you. And they never got back to us. So they were intentionally ignoring us. October 10th, attorney responds to planning department after seeing the submittal of the application, which is what they were waiting for. They wanted us to get engaged, and then they wanted to combat this. Whereas, you know, you would normally go, hopefully a more neighborly way, and have a conversation. Architects reach out, I reach out, city reaches out, you don't respond. So, you know, in conclusion, basically the neighbor was unwilling to discuss with us in good faith. The views we don't believe are being blocked. His whole house is facing a different direction. There's untrimmed trees between the properties that create a natural screen. Tree's been there for 30 years. I mean, if it goes, as I mentioned, they should plant another tree. We pulled back the deck 5 feet without them asking us, just to be considerate. So, and then we also, at the design review board meeting, I want to make it clear that we offered the privacy screening on the stairs. It wasn't imposed on us. We just said, hey, let's do that to be a good neighbor once again. Here's the back of 18 Place Milan. You can't see the story poles. I mean, they're behind these trees. And it's more than this one tree blocking it. There's this tree, there's multiple trees. And then also you can see the vegetation here. They're not really hanging out on this deck. In fact, they're not hanging out on any of these decks. Here's more pictures of it. I mean, nothing to be seen. The story poles are up. You can't see anything. Once again, the proposal for the screen on the stairwell that we provided, which was adopted. The reason for our deck is our family as well. I mean, we are, just moved in and we would like to have our kids have a space to run around, to play, and to kind of, have the same experience that 18 Place Milan had, or any of the other neighbors, as I pointed out. So we want a level backyard for our kids to play, and basically that's what it is. That is my presentation, and then I don't know if you wanted to add something.
Hi there, Elizabeth Breckus on behalf of the applicants, and I just want to add the picture that opposing attorney provided showing that the deck was larger than the house. That doesn't bear an architect stamp. You have in the plans, the plans showing the deck and the house, and you can see the scale of that, and you can see it's very, very different than what was presented with no architecture stamp, just an argument of counsel. It should be disregarded. The only thing he said that an architect did is because he couldn't show the story poles through the trees because the trees completely obscure the deck that will be behind it. He says we had the help of a local architect draw those over the trees because he can't present the argument he's making. He has to superimpose those so you see where they are behind this privacy screening. The screening is just really enviable. And his letter alternates between talking about this heavily forested area and this potential fire hazard, and then, the lack of screening. I also want to make the point that we offered that screening. It was taken up by the DRB board, but in response to their letter arguing about this stairwell, we suggested it, and then they accepted it. So this is kind of, the no good deed scenario. So now it's an appeal ground. But I think that the obvious fact that there are 6 decks and that 2 of those decks are over 1,700 square feet shows you that this is a case of I've got mine and now I don't want you to have yours. And it's unreasonable. And so the applicant has done everything right. There's been no engagement whatsoever, even to today. And this is simply planning by ambush by the neighbor. And so we ask that you do deny this appeal. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Both sides will have an opportunity, 3 minutes at the end to respond to each other and to any comments that have been made. Now is the public comment period. Anyone who has a public comment, please so indicate, and you will have the opportunity to speak. Is there anyone here who would like to speak? Okay, anyone online?
Seeing none.
All right, so I'll close the public comment period. The appellant has another chance to speak for up to 3 minutes if you would like. You don't have to, but you're welcome to. Okay.
Just enlarged photo. Okay. I'd like to respond to a couple of the comments that were made by the applicant. There was a comment made that, you've got yours and now we can't have ours. Not an elevated deck. Is that what you can't have? You can't have a 27-foot high, 1,400 square foot deck system. That's what you can't have. What you can have are at grade decks. And what we see from this photo, down here, which is a beautiful terraced hillside that the previous owner took a lot of care with. But if you really wanted to, you have a tremendous area down here to build a at-grade deck system. Jim Mallett at the DRB said that the issue of privacy is important. The proposed deck would have the ability to look right straight through the living room, the dining room, the kitchen, the family room, to the view on the other side of the house. Contrary to what you heard, I've sat in that living room. I've been in the sofas. It is not a back window. It is the living room, and it goes right into the family room and the kitchen. That is my client's main viewing area. And as we saw in the PowerPoint presentation, I don't know how we can switch to that quickly, but in this photo, you cannot count on trees being anywhere, as we know. Trees burn, trees die, they get diseased. They are not screening, they're not permanent. Anything could happen, and then if this deck is built, this will be the orientation. All we have ever asked is the same thing that Jim Mallett said at the DRB, is just simply reduce the size of it and lower it so it's down below the privacy wall. We do have issues about fire, elevated structures. I understand that will be taken up by the fire department, but we have to ask ourselves, do we really want to encourage these types of elevated deck systems in a time like this? And is this something we want to tell the neighborhood that now, if you want to get extensions on your home, you can build these large elevated decks? I think that what is a more prudent course is you terrace and you build deck systems on your hillside. And as far as the applicant saying that any lower deck would be useless, completely useless, that's nonsensical. So you walk down the side steps, as we saw in the last photo, maybe about 10 feet to get onto your deck. And they could have a deck down there that's 1,000 square feet. But why does it have to come off the main living area with a stairwell system that comes straight down to the privacy wall within 3 feet, and then come off of the third level living areas to that type of elevation? It makes no sense to me. It makes absolutely no sense to my client and his family. And this is a huge invasion of privacy if this were to be allowed. I highly recommend that you grant the appeal, you send it back to the DRB for redesign and further consideration, just like Mr. Mallett said. I understand I'm referencing him a lot, but he's the only architect on the DRB, and he has all the experience in the world. And he said, this project is just—
Please wrap it up.
This project is out of scale with the rest of the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, does the applicant want to respond? You have 3 minutes.
Okay, just got 3 points. To quote the DRB, I think it was Bruce Chung, the head of DRB, he stated very clearly that this deck is in line with the size of the home and in the neighborhood. So if you want to quote DRB, that is what the opposition thought. Another question is, why is Mr. Lamphere designing our deck? I mean, 27 feet is a misleading number because he's measuring it from the lowest point. You saw the slope of the lot, how steep it is. To take that number is a very misleading number, just like a lot of the other misleading things that they've done in this presentation. If you look at 14 Placemont, the neighbor on the other side, they're looking right down onto our deck and onto our house as well. This is the nature of this area. I mean, we are all sloped above each other, looking down on each other. There's actually a lot more trees between us and 18. It's not a big deal. I mean, if they want to see us on our deck, they see us on our deck. It's okay. I mean, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, I just want to make the point that, council says there's this giant privacy problem. It's privacy from here, privacy impact from here. I can see from here. Well, where are those photos? Normally, when you have a huge problem with a planning item, it's obvious. You see it with your eyes. And here, he has not presented any photos. At best, he can draw some storylines to show you where through the trees, one of which is suddenly going to die, according to him, without an arborist report, without any evidence, there is this impact. And I would just suggest to you that he can't show that because it does not exist. This privacy impact that he's claiming is completely unsubstantiated. This at elevated decks, Tiburon doesn't treat these decks differently. It doesn't. You could, but you just don't. And it would be really unfair to these steep sloping lots to not have them. And so what I would say is the decks that are that the appellant has, they are accessed through the home. That's what makes a deck usable. It doesn't really do any good for this family to, you know, hike down the hillside and then have a deck at the lowest part of their lot. What would that do? That would actually mean that you would not give this homeowner the same right that all of the neighbors have, and certainly the homeowner that is opposing, that ironically is here opposing this. So I would just say that the DRB got it right. This is a very reasonable application. It's not a reach. And it was done with good faith, with a lot of time to try and create some engagement with the other side. And it's unfortunate we're here, but we do appreciate your time and ask that you uphold this application approval and deny the appeal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I'm going to bring it back to the council. Before I do, I have a note that staff sometimes has comments or a summary after the presentations. I don't know if you have anything you want to add or if you've already presented everything you need to say.
I think the only point of clarification I wanted to make, if I may, regarding my presentation and the inventory of decks, whether we're looking at elevated decks, at-grade decks. And Lee, I don't know if you can bring up the presentation. Do we still have the?
Oh,
Yes, mine. Okay.
You want me to get that? one?
Yeah, there was a slide that was part of the presentation where I did sort of a rough, yeah, that one, thank you so much. Rough summary of these decks. And I just wanted to clarify, everything that I highlighted is an elevated deck. So it is not an at-grade patio, landing, walkway. These footprints in yellow and where it says 2, 3, those are all showing, those are all identifying elevated decks. So those are above grade. I know it's kind of hard to see, but you can see here, these are all above grade from second, third story. So I just wanted to clarify that when we were looking at the inventory of decks, that's what was highlighted.
All right, thank
That's
you.
all I have. Thank you.
That's great. All right, so time for council discussion. Who would like to start? Okay, Councilmember Ryan.
Yeah, so thank you for those presentations to everybody. And look, I appreciate this is an emotionally charged issue, given that it's primary residences that are involved. And you know, but I watched the DRB meeting and it was a robust, healthy discussion. There was definitely disagreement, as they said. You know, one of the DRB members disagreed and the vote was 2-1. But at the end of the day, you know, the way I see it is the applicant came to the DRB with a proposal for something they want. It is the DRB's job to protect the neighbors, and the DRB considered that, but in the end, they voted to approve this application, having taken into account the protection for the neighbors, and they thought that the protections for the neighbors were adequate. They thought that this project qualified in every other way. I thought that the staff addressed the various elements of the appeal very thoroughly, but at its core, my position, and I would support to reject the appeal, is that the DRB was very thorough. The discussion, as I said, was very robust, and they ended in a disagreement. You've seen it here. We disagree sometimes. We have split votes, but that's sort of the nature of the board. And the DRB voted to approve the project, and that's what I would want to be consistent with that and accept their approval. And so I would reject the appeal.
Thank you. Other council members?
Yeah, I think one of the areas that was, I think, particularly troubling, and I think we brought this up when we've had other disputes. We get a lot of these disputes here, is neighbors talking to each other and really having a more open line of communication. I think that is something I think we ask for. It sounds like that didn't happen much, and there's you know, some lawyer on lawyer activity that's happening that can, you know, reduce the ability for the two sides to communicate and work through some of those issues, which is what it sounds like happened here. But I also, you know, I tend to agree with Council Member Ryan that it's gone through the process and has been pretty thoroughly vetted. I don't know if I have enough to overturn, you know, what the DRB has decided.
Mayor, do you have any comments?
Um, I don't think I have comments at the moment. I'll listen to what everyone else has to say first.
Okay. I do want to underscore what Commissioner Ryan said at the beginning, which is that, you know, we don't like these appeals because we have to make decisions between residents and decisions regarding where you live, you know, are, as Jack said, emotionally charged and difficult, and you want to make everyone happy. But in the end, you know, we have a process, and in general, we try to appoint really good boards and commissions, and then trust them to do their work. I think DRB is one of our best boards. They take their work very seriously. Sometimes they have split decisions, but I agree with the other two council members that have spoken, and think we should let their decision stand. So I'm prepared to entertain a motion unless Mayor Thier, unless you have a comment now, we're happy to proceed.
I think we can go to a motion.
Okay.
I'd make a motion to deny the appeal and direct staff to return with the appropriate resolution for adoption at the next meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, can you please call the roll?
Councilmember Fredericks is absent. Councilmember Nick Farr,
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wellner,
Yes.
and Mayor Thier.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Again, we know these decisions are difficult, and we really try and have neighbors work with each other as much as possible in order not to have us be the arbiter, but we've made the decision. So back to the regular agenda. Mayor, do you want to take over again, or would you like me to wrap?
Sure,
No.
I'll take over. Thank you for doing that appeal. And thank you to all the parties for coming and speaking to us tonight. I think we're at the end of our agenda. Unless there are town council reports or town manager reports, I will adjourn the meeting. Okay, meeting is adjourned.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Okay. Good night,
you.
everybody.
It takes a while for the thought to go from my brain to my mouth.